I am so excited to be talking about today's video. I finally made it back to the theater. It's been a couple of weekends since I've been just springtime illnesses and associated things. So I went to go see Sinners this weekend. It was released on the 18th. It was released by Warner Brothers, directed and written by Ryan Coogler, who is most well known for the Black Panther movies, as well as a movie called Creed, which I have not seen. This movie stars Miles Caton, Michael B. Jordan, Jack O'Connell, Delroy Lindo, as well as a numerous amount of fantastic supporting actors. Trying to leave their troubled lives behind, twin brothers return to their hometown to start again, only to discover that an even greater evil is waiting to welcome them back. This one is listed as a supernatural horror, as well as an action and a drama. Um, I remember hearing about this one at the beginning of the year for some anticipated 2025 horror movies, and um, it is not these subgenres like action horror, creature features, period type horror movies don't they're not my typical favorites. I don't know. It usually isn't something that I gravitate towards, but going into this one with an open mind, and I'm actually so glad that I was able to see it in theaters. It was just, and I'll talk more about it obviously, but this may be, as of right now, my favorite theatrical release that I've watched in 2025. I really, really enjoyed it. And so this is set in 1930s Mississippi, and it takes place over the course of just 2 days, if you don't count the post-credit scenes, which I will talk about more in spoilers. So the story follows the Smokestack twins, who are cutely named Smoke and Stack, nicknamed, and we follow them as they recruit people for the grand opening of their juke joint that they had just purchased after returning from Chicago. So they are collecting musicians, people from their past to help run this grand opening event. And this is a creature supernatural horror. I won't say too much about it just in case you haven't put two and two together from the trailers. But so there is a supernatural element to it that sort of creates the chaos that propels the story. So there's a lot of recurring themes within the movie. I think most notably things around death and immortality, family, and very specifically about the power of music, especially for displaced and persecuted cultures. So the introduction to the movie talks about how in different cultures there's this sort of mythical figure who is a musician who's able to play so well that they bridge this sort of gap between past and future generations. And they talk about specifically African cultures as well as Native cultures, and then Irish cultures as well. And that when this is happening, while this, they're playing the music in this way, it also puts them at risk of interacting with like evil sort of supernatural entities. You also have some interplay of different religions. One of the characters is a preacher's son, and so there's themes around Christianity, as well as one of the characters is an occult practitioner. I believe hoodoo is what they mentioned. And so you have kind of these like competing ideologies, I guess, like religions present in the movie as well. And of course, given the time frame and the characters, there are themes of racism that are present, especially in the end of the movie, but sort of throughout as well. So, talking about the execution, this movie was beautifully executed. There was so much that I loved about it. So, there was clearly a lot of love and attention and budget devoted to the sets and the costumes and everything that we saw throughout the movie. Just like a lot of detail. And a lot of just visually stunning set pieces, very intriguing set pieces. um, the acting was great, the characters were great. I think they really took time to build the characters within the story so that by the end of the movie, you were left really caring about them and really being invested in them. They all felt very well fleshed out. This movie is really heavily focused on music, and so there was some really great score, really great like musical sequences. There was one scene in particular, and if you've seen it, you probably know what I'm talking about. I won't say anything about it until spoilers, but it did make me cry. Just with just the emotional depth of it, I don't know. There were just so many moments in this movie that I found really beautiful and really heartwarming. There was a really good blend of tension and drama, as well as action sequences and humor in it as well to just really like even out. There wasn't like prolonged periods of tension. Like everything felt really balanced in terms of how the movie made you feel as well. One minor thing that I struggled with a little bit was the the smokestack twins, especially at the beginning of the movie, are almost like too cool. Like it kind of beats you over the head with it, and maybe that's just Michael B. Jordan's performance because I got similar vibes from him in his role in Black Panther, but there were just a few times where I was like, okay, like it almost felt like a caricature of just like cool guys. But as the story moved along, they developed a lot more depth. So I really appreciated that. My only real complaint was, and this is probably just me, but I had a really hard time understanding some of the dialogue in the beginning of the movie. I really could have used subtitles, and I probably just not super used to like that particular like Southern dialect in movies. But yeah, there were times where I didn't understand what anyone was saying. So I plan to rewatch the movie just because I enjoyed it so much, and I will definitely watch it with subtitles next time. So this, though it is marketed as a horror movie amongst other things, it's not particularly scary. There are a few jump scares, specifically in the beginning of the movie. It kind of tapers off once we get into like the real meat of everything. The creatures, we'll say for now, the design is interesting. It's not super overt, which I appreciate. I like subtlety in my, horror creatures. Um, they also, interestingly, kind of become more non-human as specifically one character becomes more non-human as time goes on, which I think was cool just to see that kind of progression of like when they first appear seeming very human and then sort of just like um, devolving as time goes on. There's some really subtle um, visual choices for the creatures, specifically when we're interacting with some of them. Um, their eyes are like dark because they're interacting with them in the dark, and the way that it's filmed, like you can't see their eyes, um, and it's really spooky. And it's I think I found that really effective for me in terms of like visuals. There's also a pretty decent amount of gore in this movie. Lots of like splurting, I guess you could call it, like just open wounds, just like gushing. And so that was, I mean, that added to it for sure. It was definitely fun visually in terms of horror, but leaned a lot more into the action and the drama rather than horror. So at this point in the review, we'll talk spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled, definitely go check this one out in theaters. I highly, highly recommend it. Um, it's a fun one. I think it's definitely a fun theater watch. Go with some friends, and definitely check it out. So they're vampires. Um, Spoiler, if you didn't already gather that from the trailer. They are vampires, and the main vampire is played by Jack O'Connell, who I know and love from Skins. And he does an excellent job as playing the sort of leader of the vampires. Um, their design, again, like I said, is pretty subtle, right? I love the eye flares as like being the most notable thing about them. They're not, the fangs are really subtle, but they just have these like kind of non-human, like glow in the dark eyes. And it's pretty spooky, especially in the scenes where they're doing more like non-human stuff, like jumping through the air, and it's just blurry, and you can just see the little eye flares. I appreciate that subtlety, and not showing too much of the like jumping into the air and things like that. I kind of lost track of time in this movie, so because the action, like the big, the big scenes happen pretty far. We establish a lot before we get into the main stuff. So I wasn't expecting Stack to be, I guess not killed, but killed, right? To be turned so quickly. I had assumed, I don't know why, just based on like the other twin movie that I watched this year, where one of the twins dies. I assumed that um, I assumed that one of them would potentially die, but it just happened so abruptly. But I think it led to a really neat dynamic where the two are sort of like on either ends of this, like good versus evil kind of spectrum. um, I think maybe this was teased more. I had a hard time differentiating which one was which. What really helped me was the love interest. That helped me remember like whose past was what. I think I'd have to watch it again to see if there was like indication that one of the twins, specifically Stack, most likely, was more drawn to evil, and maybe that's why he ended up being the one who was turned and then sort of trying to entice Smoke back into it with him. Um, so I don't know, maybe that detail was in there and I just kind of missed it in the like trying to remember which one was which. Um, but yeah, that was an interesting dynamic for sure, especially like one of the final scenes where they're fighting. It's kind of they look the same, so it's like kind of like this internal like good versus evil like within yourself kind of like battle, which interesting. And so many of the characters die. And it wasn't, I don't know if it could have been done any differently, but it was just really sad and hard to watch these characters that, we were with for this whole, this whole setup for this movie, who were just so lovely and so like unique. Specifically, I loved Annie and I loved Grace, played by Wunmi Musako and Lee Jun Lee. I think Jack O'Connell played a really convincing vampire as a villain. I really just his whole sort of like cultish portrayal of this, creature that is trying to almost like create like a commune, I guess, is what he was trying to do. And his character's death was really interesting and honestly like visually beautiful. I really enjoyed just seeing him in that element. I think it was really fitting. And of course, the finale of Smoke killing all of the Klansmen was fantastic. Um, I am so glad that they added like an extra like 15, 20 minutes to the movie to have that finale. It's just it's a lot of it's a lot of fun, and it's also just like so beautiful in the end where he and Annie are holding hands, and she passes him their baby that had passed away, and just coming like full circle with this idea of where on one hand he was offered immortality and choosing death as a way of reuniting with the woman he loved and his child that he lost. Just so like, just I don't know, it's just so emotional. I really really just a, a melancholy, a sad ending for him, but like not also, I don't know, just kind of that like beautiful, yeah, beautiful melancholy. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, because there are, if you haven't seen it yet and you're watching spoilers because you really don't care about spoilers. There are two post-credit scenes. One where it shows Sammy grown up um, as a musician after all of this happened, and he for a moment thought considered kind of getting rid of the guitar and becoming the preacher's son. He leaves Mississippi with the broken guitar and becomes a successful musician. But in that scene, the Stack and Mary return, and it's revealed that Smoke allowed Stack to leave with her, and they have been, I guess, living their lives together as vampires. And they offer Sammy, immortality, and he denies it. I guess I don't know. I guess them not or them returning sort of is a nod to this idea that sorry, my dog is panicking because we have to go on our walk soon. But anyway, yeah, so sort of this idea that perhaps the vampires are not entirely evil, right? That there's kind of like a nuance to it, and that it's not so much like this fight between good and evil, but there's just kind of two nuanced sides to things. And then, of course, you get the last lines where they're talking of Sammy says that before the sun went down on that day, it was the greatest day of his life. And Stack says that it was the last time that he and his brother saw the sun together, and that there was the time he was truly free. And again, it's just like this heart wrenching, beautiful ending to this pretty like somber kind of tale. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I liked that they added that bit in there, even though I was sort of confused to see but I mean, I guess I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It was a good ending. I had a lot of feelings, obviously. So the last thing I want to talk about is the probably what is referred to now as the scene when people are talking about this movie, and it's the scene where Sammy plays his first song at the juke joint, and it has that sort of magical effect that was mentioned in the beginning of the movie, and you start seeing like these past and present black musicians sort of just like popping into the room and playing excuse me and playing different music styles, and it is just so beautiful. It is such a beautiful moment in this movie where everyone is just like, and the camera work was exquisite. Like it made me so emotional just to see this like connection between past, present, and future generations of like people making so much meaning from their music. And so you get it with the black people that are there, but also the Chinese immigrants. And it's just like, I don't know, it was just so beautiful. I would love to just watch that scene again just to kind of soak up that. It just, the like human connection to our roots and our, our futures. all kind of bundled up in this like really powerful medium of like connecting with others, that being music. It was just fantastic. It was just such a lovely scene. It was so well done. Like watching the movie for that scene, is, I mean, I would recommend people watch it just to watch that scene because it's just so wonderful. It's just so lovely. Um, yeah, I don't know. I was really enamored by it. And then, the everything sort of goes down after that. And then you get these really great action sequences and some emotional deaths. But it's all worth it for that scene. The character work was just great. There was so many interesting, like I cared so much for everyone. Um, they all had these very unique like lives and backstories and things that really like made them feel like people. And it made it harder when they died. I loved, Grace's sort of exit, and throwing the Molotov cocktail at the vampires, and staking her husband while they both burn together. I mean, it's heartbreaking, but also just like, again, just visually beautiful and really cool. There was just so much to it that I appreciated. And the 30s aesthetic is just perfect. You gotta love seeing the Tommy guns at the end, and just like the 30s costuming. The dress that Mary wears specifically, loved it. Gorgeous. That it's like silk, and she just looks so stunning in it. Yeah, just there's so much detail to it and so much care that went into it. This honestly may be my first 5 out of 5 for this year. I loved this movie and I had a really good time watching it. There was just so much to it, and I probably wouldn't have thought that a action horror like period piece vampire movie would be my favorite of the year thus far, but it just goes to show that stepping out of your comfort zone can be beneficial, right? Like it was a good call, and I'm happy that I saw it in theaters. So highly recommend. Definitely go see it if you haven't yet. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and Letterboxd, and I'm hoping to have something up for y'all soon. Thanks. Bye.